my entire career, all I ever did was federal government construction. And between my
Right.
dad and I, we did $1 billion worth of work with the federal government. We did over 1,000 federal government construction contracts, everything from wind tunnels, water treatment plants, kitchen renovations, roofing jobs. I mean, you name it, we did every type of construction you can imagine. Uh, Made about somewhere between 300 and 350 million dollars over our career in total.
That's a nice
And
neighborhood to be in.
it is. And then something interesting happened in 2005. Well, more a tragedy than interesting. But in 2005, my brother was in a boating accident, had a golf ball sized portion of his brain removed.
Ouch, I'm
Um,
sorry to hear that.
it was terrible. And at the time, my dad was on a federal job up in New York trying to figure out how to get back to Austin. I got a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning, and all he said was, I don't know if your brother is going to live or die, but he's currently heading into brain surgery. Can you go pick up your mom and take her to the hospital? I was like,
Wow.
whoa, okay. So went down, picked up mom, went down to the hospital. He didn't get out of ICU for 2 months. And my dad and I we dropped everything we were doing and focused on his recovery, including when we got him out of ICU and into a regular hospital room. They had to teach him how to eat and drink and walk and all these kinds of things. And we built a brain rehab center in his home. It's There's all kinds of news articles. If you just Google my name or my brother's name or my dad's name, it
Okay.
got some national news coverage what we were doing, because at the time we were talking to the Army about traumatic brain injuries and
Hmm.
what it might look like uh, to be on the leading edge of recovery from these types of injuries. So we started investing $200,000 a month in his recovery for 5 years. We brought in experts from
Wow.
all over the world: Russia, Australia, China. Um, and anyway, at the end of 5 years, as you'll recall, the 2008 housing crisis hit, and Obama issued what was called the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act.
Right.
And that earmarked $150 billion to stimulate the economy. The problem was there was only 25,000 registered federal contractors to try to bid, $150 billion worth of work, and it was too much meat on the bone. And around that same time, the local Austin American Statesman newspaper here, they wrote an article that said the residential and commercial construction had gone to shit. My dad wrote her an email and said that may be true for residential and commercial, but the federal market is booming.
Tax dollars have to be used.
Oh,
We
there
got
you go.
Johnny in here.
Sorry.
Hi, Johnny.
So I had some tech issues with my. I had to sign in by my phone. Go ahead.
No
Good
worries.
morning. Finally got to
Morning.
find.
Do you prefer William or Bill?
Will is just fine.
Oh, Will. Okay. So she said, "Would you mind writing an article about that?" So my dad said, "Sure, I'll write an article." There was a popular movie around that time that the tagline was "Show me the money." So he writes an article called "Show Me the Money," talking about the opportunity in the federal market.
Hmm.
That article got picked up by a national magazine called Central Contractors Renovation or something magazine. But anyway, it got published. And then a fellow named Jacob Crawl in Dallas, Texas, read that article and called us up and asked if we would speak in front of his roofing and restoration contractors at his next event up in Dallas. And we said sure. So we drive up to Dallas, and I don't know what your relationship is with your dad, but my dad's just the kind of guy that every once in a while he says things and you're like, where the hell did that come from? You know?
Right.
And so we're talking, we give this 1 hour speech up there in Dallas, and there's like 110 roofing and restoration contractors in the room. And at the end of the speech, he said, I'll take 10 companies, 2 people per company, into a room for 3 days. I'll teach you everything you need to know to be successful in the federal government construction market. He had just said he'll take 20 people into a room of 110 people. He got bum rushed as he was walking off the stage. I was so amazed and perplexed as to what was happening. I had an iPhone 3 at the time. It looked like one of those stock market guys holding up something and there's a whole group of people. It looked like that.
Right.
And so we get in the car, we're driving home. He had just sold $100,000 in tickets to an event that didn't exist. And I'm going, what did you just do? Like, what's this all about? And he said, Sean, our federal government, whether you agree how vast it is or not, they they own 1 million buildings across the United States. And it's not for us to tell the government that they don't need a building or they need a building, but they're there and they all need construction goods and services. Obama, 47 billion out of the 150 billion that was earmarked for the stimulus package, in other words, to stimulate our economy, just got pulled out of that and into the general fund because there's not enough good federal contractors, and I'm just the guy to fix that. And I went, okay, this is what we're doing now. So anyway, we got asked. So a year later, a guy named Anthony Del Medico, who at the time owned a company called Win the Storm, he was doing national conferences, and he was getting ready to do his first one. Well, there were his best friends. These 2 guys, I never met them and I don't know their names, but they were in the room that day that my dad said, I'll take 10 companies into a room. And they're telling Anthony, you got to find these 2 guys from Texas, these federal government construction guys. You got to find them. They're amazing. So we get a cold call from him to fly down to Miami and speak in front of his group, which was like 5,000 people. Mm-hmm. Well, that went well, and he asked us to speak every year after that at his events in New Orleans and Phoenix and Las Vegas and some other places. But so once a year for the next like 8 years or 9 years, we did a 3-day training event here in my office in Austin, Texas. Then the pandemic hit. And I thought it was over. Like, okay, we can't bring people in the room anymore, can't talk on stage. My dad actually retired at that time. And then I was, my kid was home at Christmas, and he said, Dad, you need to put this stuff on Facebook. And I went, yeah, Facebook is for pictures of me eating tacos and where your mom's going to find her future boyfriend. He said, no, you got to take this serious, man. And I was like, okay. So I made a video and I posted it on Facebook. And then I'm imagining that's how Johnny found me, but that's the whole thing was just kind of an interesting accident because the whole time there was no reason for us to do this in the first place. And every workshop that we did, I recorded from 6 different camera angles, not because I knew the pandemic was coming, just because I thought it was really cool that people were flying down to Austin, Texas. Well, now this many years later, I've got this incredible treasure trove of what we taught contractors to do.